All right, welcome back, guys, to the Steak Knife Show.
Snake knife.
Woo. I'm Tim Schindel.
I like that way better.
Snake Knife. Who are you? Say your name.
Hi, I'm Sean Foster, local asshole.
Jesus. Okay, so we kind of left a question out the last time we talked.
Two
In episode number deuce.
Two questions or one question?
It's kind of like a longer question. The question that we asked and we didn't answer because we both suck at this kind of thing
Concussion.
is, does competition help you deal with a higher level of violence?
Right, okay. Does competition help? Yes. I mean, so I was in, again, maybe eventually if somebody actually watches these, I was never like a gifted athlete, right? Like it's always been like just show up, like hard work. Like I've never been there. And now that being said, like I think everybody has natural talents. I look like melted ice cream, but like I have a gas tank. I can do. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. That's probably one main reason is we're friends.
Yeah.
But I always when I started training and took it really seriously, I was a police officer, and I was like, man, like I really like my biggest fear, even when I was like the fat little kid doing Taekwondo. Am I wasting my life on something, right? Because like we would do katas and then we would spar where like it was point sparring.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and then I get my ass whooped at school.
Right.
And I was like, this isn't real, right? And, you know, Power Ranger kid, like grew up on like Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, like all this stuff. And I was like, man, like, is there something real to this, right? And then I remember my dad showed me from Blockbuster UFC 2. And I was like, oh.
That's the real.
And he's like, that's real. He's like, we train, like, because we're martial artists, but, like, that's real fighting.
Yeah.
And I was like, I never understood the difference. And then, you know, when I became a police officer, I was a young rookie, and we did the 2 weeks of, like, back. And then I was, you know, a high-level competitive judo guy. But I just remember this, my training instructor for combative said, Neon Belly's bullshit and it'll never work. And I was like, I volunteer as tribute.
Yeah.
Like, and he was like, I'll get out of it. Because he's like this cock diesel, like Marine, had been stabbed in the chest and like fought the dude to death while leaving the knife in. Like, real badass. And I said, I can hold you down with Neon Belly.
Yeah.
And he said, no, you absolutely can't. And then I held him down for 20 minutes and then I had to run 5 miles every day. Because I embarrassed him in front of the class. But like, so right there, like kind of started my whole like, okay, there's something real about this, right?
Yeah.
And that was when I was just doing judo. I hadn't found jiu-jitsu, like true jiu-jitsu yet. And the more I did that, like, as I've spoken about, like I was part of a cult, and like we would have these in-house smokers, and it would be like, if you want your stripe, you gotta hurt this person, and like we killed each other. But we were also a competitive gym, and like. So we would train so hard that we got hurt and then go fight, but we were fighting so hard in the gym, competition was easy. And that's when it kind of clicked for me, like, okay, if your training is close to real, you're good at fighting. But then, I forget his name. He was really big in, what was the blue one before they ate him? Like Dominic Cruz was big there, is where Uriah Faber made his name really big. I forget the organization.
The blue one?
The blue cage before Uriah Faber and everybody came to the UFC. It was like it was for lightweights. It was all lightweight people. Donald Cerrone was there. Ben Henderson was there. Like it was, I can't remember it. But
Strikeforce? No.
No, it wasn't Strikeforce. If you watch this, you know what it is.
We'll find
But Jamie Varner, I think it was like, these dumb kids are hitting their, like punching in on their card, not realizing like your hit card only has so many punch outs before you're just done, right? And you're kind of seeing, you saw it with Anderson Silva, you saw it really bad with Muhammad Ali. Like you only have so many hard things, so training shouldn't really be to the death, but how do you get close to it? And so like I really like bought into jiu-jitsu because you can do it 100% and not get hurt. But then when you go fight somebody, like it's wild and different. Like there's true like it's the closest to real combat that you can get safely.
Right.
Well, even in MMA where you can tap, like you're getting hit for reals. Like, so, yeah, competition gets you ready for those hyper stressful things. And the biggest one, my dad had talked about it for years, because his instructor always talked about like this mind like water, zen like state, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't understand what that meant. And then one day I was trying to explain to my dad, like, one of my cage fights was super easy. Like, it was to the point that like I felt like I knew what he was gonna do before he did it. And like you can almost see it, like I'm moving before he does the move. I'm almost like 3 steps ahead. He's like, yeah, you've trained so well and so hard that like you like you just can feel it. Like and like my dad's a hippie. Like he would hate hearing that, but he's a hippie, like pothead, like stoner, but like one of the smartest dudes I've ever known. And he was like, when you can kind of see and just read their body movement and your body's reacted, like you've trained to the point that you're ready. And that started to pay dividends in law enforcement. And now, as you and I know, that in a hospital setting, like you and I, from touching somebody, like, oh, this is going to be a bad one. Or like we meet their aggression.
Yeah.
And then when we touch them, like, oh, this is just bluster. Like you're just scared, right?
That is definitely something, like, even just from a training aspect, not even a competition aspect, I have learned. Like, I can tell within almost a second of touching somebody whether they would be a real problem or whether they're just going to be bluster. And it's about tension in their body, like the way they manage themselves and like how they move even.
Now, I have my opinions on it, but I have a question for you, account question.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you're like, you know, your journey has just kind of started.
Yep.
Do you feel like you would have that ability to read somebody if you only did striking? Or is it just a specific thing to grappling?
What kind of striking?
Your hybrid stuff.
The hybrid stuff?
That you're like the advanced Krav Maga and stuff like that. And now the knife control concepts. But which is grappling, I guess, though.
I was going to say, like, that's hard to say because Anjanetti's hybrid system is
the best knife defense other than running.
Yeah, other than if you can't run. If that's an option, get your cardio up.
Yeah.
Includes enough grappling that you do build a sensitivity to that.
Okay.
Because a lot of their foundational stuff is wrestling, hand fighting. So you
Not
learn.
Muay Thai.
No, I mean, their striking is a mixture of Krav striking, like whatever that may entail. Some like unique stuff that's like kind of outside the realm of normal.
Okay.
Like if you're in an odd position, like backhanded strikes and upward angles and stuff like that. But they do incorporate like traditional kickboxing ideas and stuff like that as far as their sparring. But then they blend it with takedowns, touching, like grappling, like clearing collar ties, understanding over-under and, you know, overhooks, underhooks and stuff like that. So that in that way it's unique. Now, if you told me go do Taekwondo, I would say no.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because Taekwondo does, that I know of, I mean, I may be wrong because I'm not well versed in it, but it doesn't have necessarily a grappling aspect to it like a Muay Thai does.
The closest traditional martial art that I know, there's Chinese kickboxing, which is Sanda or Sanchao, like where it's kind of like Muay Thai, but they hit like big tosses and slams and
So it has like a throwing aspect to it.
And then karate has them in their kata, and like I've seen some demonstrated, but like I know, like,
yeah.
I mean, don't be wrong. There are, like, look at Wonder Boy, and then one of my buddies back in Kansas City, Sean Calhoun, was a very good street fighter, but he was good because he was mentally dirty, right? He would do a technique, like he would target to reverse your knee.
Okay.
Right? Like he would do it before you had a chance to realize, like, oh, this man can kick.
Yeah. So he was doing like true counter grappling.
Yeah.
Like he was striking to counter grappling in a way that was like damaging.
Really striking to disable.
Right, which is, I would say, is counter grappling. You're not letting him get inside.
Right.
And that may be like a bad
now for
opinion,
a long time. I think he's like a 2 or 3 stripe white belt now. In Kansas City in jiu-jitsu. But like his bane really was grappling. And that was kind of like how we grew up, like sparring with each other. Like he would try to keep me away.
Yeah.
I'd try to survive the onslaught and like that kind of thing. But like even then, like I could kind of already tell, like, I should probably invest more in grappling, right? If I can control you, I can stop the pain.
Yeah.
And I can handle the like little rabbit shots. So I just wanted to, like, again, it's a concept that, like, I think grappling is king. And even in the terms of grappling, there's different realms. Like and you can't say one's better than the other, right? Like, and you really can't. Like wrestling, like, oh, it only does this, but then look at like, especially like all the guys from Dagestan, like Khabib and all his group, like they're horrific. Like it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And you have like true slick people in jiu-jitsu, like Craig Jones and Gordon Ryan. Like you have people who could probably beat everybody. And then you have some real badasses in judo, and like Kayla Harris and J-Flow and one judoka, like in.
Or look at what Ronda Rousey did with judo in the
that
cage.
Will always be an asterisk to me because
but it's true.
She was a high caliber professional, like not professional Olympian, but like high caliber athlete. But when she ran into other high caliber athletes, like they're like she's a pioneer, but she'll never be in the greatest talks, right?
Okay.
In my very humble local opinion, right? Like I've never done anything in my life, but like there's always unfortunately gonna be an asterisk because like, and she didn't adapt well, right? Shinya Aoki, another judoka, but that's off topic. Yes, competition helps you out in those real world scenarios, and what it does is it gets you to kind of be, again, that age old, be comfortable in an uncomfortable scenario.
Yeah. So I have limited one competition for grappling period, which I'm gonna change. But
are you blue belt?
Oh yes,
I am. One competition a belt.
No, one competition a year, at the least. But I've been thinking about this a lot, actually having a lot of conversations like in this type of setting about it and what that brings. But so over the weekend, my head coach, Mike Chaney, got his first degree, and then his coach, Mike Chaney. Yeah, and Aaron Janetti got his black belt.
Woo! And
Mitch got his black belt. Woo!
True, like more than me, double black belt. Like Mitch,
doctor for real. So, but the head of Brasso was there, Deion Thompson, and he's not a street fighter. He's not any of that stuff. He's a basketball player and does jiu-jitsu and does it at a world champion level.
Dude wins.
Yeah, he wins
the time,
and he knows how to play the game. He knows how to play that game.
And he's not winning through like athletic dominance, which he is athletically dominant.
Yeah,
but like he's winning by the rule set.
Yeah,
and it's truly masterful to watch somebody take other grandmaster chess players and then beat them in chess. Like it's almost like a foregone conclusion, which is such a cool thing to see.
And so his thing was, he's like, go compete, and he's like, I lost a lot. He said, I lost a lot. He's like, but it's a skill. He's like, and then you have to build to that point where you may win, and then winning can become a habit too. And that's something like, I just thought it was interesting because he's like, is this good for self-defense? He's like, I'm not going to go test it in a bar. He's like, I'll test it on a competition mat.
Yeah.
He's like, unless that's your job as a police officer or whatever, he's like, that's different. He's like, but if you want to know if jiu-jitsu, you can defend yourself, he's like, the closest thing you can get is competition.
Absolutely.
So I thought that was it was a perspective, like you and I have kind of talked about that, but we've never had that complete loop of somebody who's not doing what we do.
Right. So, and like, again, like if you can do it in competition, there's one of my favorite stories that I have is with, Jason Apt ran a self-defense program with him and Devin, and like Jason would tell this story, and he was like fresh out of the military, lived and trained and fought in Thailand.
Yeah.
Got home, got in a bar fight, squared up with a dude hit him with a bottle and he's down. Yeah. And he's like, oh, I've got him in guard. And then a dude comes over the top and hits him and he gets rocked. He said, oh shit. Right. And he does like a big overhook, controls the head, kind of like lets the dude wear himself out, and then talks his way out of this horrible position.
Yeah.
Like just by controlling it. Right. I'm not saying that you should go bar fight. I'm saying that if you train with the correct intensity and the correct mindset, and your competition just kind of like, again, like not to be like cliche, but like you're folding your blade against higher tempers of heat, right? And that's something like I compete for fun. Like it's truly like I will fight until I die. Like they're gonna have to make a whole new masters division for me. Like I'm going to do it. Or I'm gonna end up like Renzo Gracie fighting young dudes at 51 in the cage if Travis Davis will let me. Vitor, my professor is always like, you're too goofy. You need more heat. Like you need more heat. And like, I've always been, the few times I've let that heat out, it has not gone well for me, because then I see red. Like, I lose sight of my plan of, like, I'm not planning anymore, I'm reacting. And
I would say that would make you more goofy. If you see red, you become the epitome of stupid, because that is the stupid response to a fight.
well, when I start trying to like hate my opponent, right?
Yeah.
I get stuck on, I get hyper focused on, like, this is my plan, and I can't adapt, right? Now, I have fought angry less than 5 times. Every single one of those, I was dialed in, like, on the fly, like, talking trash while I was rolling, like, and I'd let them know, like, I said, don't let me catch anything, because I'm gonna, like, it's gonna be bad for you. I'm gonna bite for real.
Yeah.
And you know, it won me a title, and that chick was on oxygen. And like, another one was, you know, unfortunately, in our community, there's a lot of inappropriate behavior, and enough women had come and said, oh, you're fighting that guy? I really, really want you to send a message. And I did. Emil Fisher talks about that guy and reposts it every year. But I did something.
Shout out to Emil. Yeah.
Shout out to Emil.
Yeah.
But I did something very similar, and like that, trying to make sure, like, it's, and everybody has a different kind of heat. Like, some people get really quiet. Like, I get really quiet, and I start to almost whisper, and I smile a lot, because I'm kind of giddy with excitement, right? I get to actually, like, try something for real, like,
Yeah.
and it's something, like, again, like, my biggest worry is that I've wasted my whole life, and competition makes me feel like I haven't done that. So
with that, like, you're talking about, like, building into a competition, like, with a lot of times, like, in a street fight or, like, at work, like, we're dealing with, like, a complete unknown. Just so that if people don't understand, like, we work in a hospital, we're hospital security, so we work and live in a major city. So that city has a lot of crime, but also it has crime as a result of mental health. And so sometimes you get somebody who's very dangerous and very violent, who also has a mental health issue on top of that, or that's why they are that.
yeah,
So it's not necessarily mutually exclusive. Sometimes people just do dangerous things because the mental health is gone, or sometimes they're both. And in those situations, I know I've had adrenaline dumps leading into a fight at work. And it's something that I had to learn how to manage. I remember the first time I had a true adrenaline dump at work, and I was like, what is this? And I had to, like, go do research, because it never happened before.
felt like a panic attack.
It felt like a panic attack. I was shaky, like,
That's
like,
so, like, that's something that I've never been able to master, even with in all my training. Like, I shake.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in our line of work, like, people think, like, oh, he's shaking my leaf, like, he's scared.
Fear. Yeah.
Right. And, like, thankfully, our coworkers are like, that's him getting ready. You might want to, like, rethink how you want this to go. And like, the only thing I can say is, like, I got over, like, my voice used to crack a lot, because there was a true adrenaline dump. But like, the more I competed, and like, even though, like, I lose a ton. I lose probably, I'd say my loss rate is much, much higher than my win rate, which is fine, because I'm doing it for fun.
Right.
But like I fight. You just kind of are used to it, so it doesn't. And I'm not saying that I can't be surprised. I absolutely can be, but like,
I was gonna say, you and I've actually talked about it a few times. You were like, hey, did something, and you said you got a dump because just of some kind of movement the person did.
Yeah, it was something on,
Like, real aggressive. Like,
that goes back to that Mark Twain quote about, like, I'd rather fight a master duelist than a complete novice, because there's almost like a properness to it. Like, when you, like, what, you know, why is it considered so disrespectful if you don't touch gloves, so you don't slap bump, right?
Yeah.
It immediately, like, it's one of those things, like, it's almost like bowing.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, like, it's not personal. And like, I've not slap bumped, I think, twice, and it was super personal. And it was when I won, but it was ugly. Like, it wasn't like, I wasn't operating from, like, a good place.
It was mean. Yeah.
It was me. It was ugly. Like,
right.
But like, you know, it's always interesting to me. Like, I still shake, but like you said, when I do get surprised, that true, like it.
Yeah.
And then I've got that.
Yeah.
And like, with my concussions, that was one thing, you know, that a couple of people I'm close with have had concussions. Like, that was the first thing that goes is your you train so much, you compete so much, your body, you having to tell your body to keep breathing
Yeah.
after a concussion because it's not doing it anymore.
Like
It's
that
such-
automatic function.
It takes away so much of your focus and your ability to perform. Like, it's why concussion, like, you should definitely rehab and you should definitely like research it and utilize any resources you have to get proper concussion recovery. Because like, I've seen people, unfortunately, there's people that like, I don't know that they will ever come back or be what they were.
Yeah.
Because they're either what they're doing is not working or they're not taking it serious.
Yeah.
Right. And I would say I'm probably not, especially this last year at
Yeah.
work with like the 6 over like 5 months. I am probably 80% of what I was.
Yeah.
And like, I do rehab like every day.
Yeah.
And it's so much is lost. Like, and not just jujitsu, but like day-to-day stuff. Like,
So like, because you've been in it so long, like speaking of that, like that, so now you have that factor, like you have the injury factor adding to the stress of combat, whether it be what we do at work in a semi-sanitary environment. I'm not going to say it's completely sanitary because it's not.
explain what you mean by sanitary. Because the hospital is the grossest place I've ever worked.
I don't mean sanitary in that way. I don't mean like clean. What I mean by sanitary is sanitary, that's like super inside baseball. I'm sorry. Typically when we deal with somebody in the hospital, there's been some kind of check for a weapon. And so we're removing some variables. We're distilling the fight down, if there is one, to personal weapons. So your hands, your fists, your feet.
Or improvise like an IV
Yeah,
pool.
they have to pick something up. They have to pick up a weapon of opportunity and use it. A pen, super dangerous. But so there is a sanitary nature to that. Like, we know we're probably going to use grappling of some kind on that person.
Mm-hmm.
So does the loss of performance, even that like 10 to 20%, make the adrenaline dumps harder to deal with? Because now your body's trying to catch up to that adrenaline at a performance level that's not necessarily there right now.
So it is much, I guess I have a much more fear at work. Like, it's hard at competition because like my heart's beating faster, like my breathing's off, right? But like at work, there's situational awareness, there is improvised weapons, there is now, because what do we say? We're managing our team, not really fighting the patient, right?
Yeah.
So like, I used to be quicker about reading, like if I'm grabbing a
Teams,
patient,
yeah, like-
reading like this person, I've almost like had my knee reversed twice now because I'm a step behind.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm not hurt is because of how much we train. But like, before pre-concussion me, never would have even been there. And
Yeah.
I would have said something to them after. Instead, I got like a light hyperflex. I'm like, "Ooh, better step back,
Yeah.
right? So like, I've just noticed at work, it's much scarier. I'm almost amping myself up
Yeah.
to get that adrenaline dump so that I can be there
So you can be alert.
sooner, right?
Hmm.
Like, and once your adrenaline dump goes down, I'm hoping for that second wind where like everything's kind of baseline now. So
So it's kind of a intermediary almost right
Yeah.
now.
I'd rather compete
Yeah.
than fight at work right now.
That makes sense because there's a ref, mats, it's stoppage.
Yeah.
So the one thing I will say, like managing the adrenaline and stuff like that, there are very few situations that I start to feel it like spike up, and I would have to really think about. I'll have to like think of what I actually do to manage it. But typically, I know like if it's somebody who I think is going to be truly violent, and I don't necessarily have the people around me that I would want to have, I start to talk a little bit more
Yep.
to slow the situation down.
That's a good, I didn't think about that. Something that
And that way I manage my adrenaline.
So mine,
like, keep
mine
that-
is, I think everybody has tactics that you need to play towards like I especially fresh in and like I look very, very young. Gonna be 37 next month, right? But like people kind of, especially when I show up on the scene, like my goal is to have like the poker face of looking bored. I want this
Yeah.
over. I don't want the paperwork. I'm fully happy doing reports and paperwork and all that stuff and having an incident, if that's what it dictates. But like I've found it for success for me is to be bored. And eventually, if I maintain that mask, they'll forget about me. Since my concussions, I notice that like somebody else will start talking more and they forget about me, and my tactic is to fade to their weak side or their strong side, but at a better angle, right?
So you're using them as a foil to gain better tactics so that you don't have to deal with as much because you feel that loss of
If they
performance
are
in a
going
way.
to, if they are going to launch an attack at me,
Right.
it's going to be completely from an unathletic stance.
Yes.
And if they're going to try to launch an attack at my partner, I am amped and ready to move.
Okay.
But they have oftentimes forgotten about me.
Yeah.
Like, because I moved out of their sight, I'm leaning on a wall, and then I kind of sidestep shuffle to get to an angle that they would have to turn to see me.
Okay.
And then, like, there's been a couple times where, like, they go to rear up and I'm already on them, right? So, again, you call it, like, melted cheese on a hamburger. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just choosing the angle of which I do that.
You're setting that up.
Yeah.
Which we're not going to talk about it right now because that's a deep conversation, but probably going to talk about group tactics and managing a group for violent encounters next. But not in this episode. That could
So
be
stressful.
It gets super stressful.
Because then you're playing with different things of, like, not
Yeah.
just, like, new guys, veterans, supervisors,
Mhm.
who's getting lost in the fight. Are we hurting or are we helping?
Yeah.
Like,
So I think we've kind of covered.
did you have another question that we didn't get to?
No, we answered both. We went over both the questions. I guess in summary, what it is it depends, and that's a true answer for anything. No, really.
What an awful answer.
I know, but so we had a pretty lengthy discussion for something else I'm producing for Knife Control Concepts for Ann Genetti and Mike Cheney, and per the great Ryan Hoover, if you don't have an instructor that says it depends, they're probably lying to you.
Yeah.
Because they're giving you a finite answer to a violent situation. There is no clear-cut answer to violence.
And really the only true answer to violence is being adaptive.
Yeah.
Like, there's multiple times, even in our job, where, like, we're winning and all of a sudden we're losing, we have to retreat.
Yeah,
or
we have to.
during our retreat,
Huh.
their violence ramps up and we're exposed to, like, seclusion rooms. They're bum rushing the seclusion room door.
Yeah.
That is an immediate, like, we have to change and get right back in
Things
there.
change. Yeah, we
Like,
have to let some pressure
there-
off and then re-engage.
and that's why, like, the only thing, it sucks, and it's a shitty answer, but, like, the answer is be ready for anything, which
Yeah.
is and again, how do you prepare for any, like, you just,
You have to train.
again,
You as an individual have to go out and do these things.
I stand by my catchphrase, and I know most of you hate it. Like, I'm very lucky, but I find, again, Enzo Gracie, the more I train, the luckier I am. Like,
Yeah.
it was very lucky that person presented the opportunity for me to overcome their action or tactic or whatever they did, right? But, like, it's because, like, we really want to live in it, and we really want to make sure that we're trying to. I don't expect our officers to train like us. You have to be truly crazy to do what you and I do. Like, we have to wrap this up so we can get to training. Like,
Yeah, we do. Which, to, like, solidify it all together, does competition help you deal with the stress of fights? Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes. Does it help you overcome everything? No. And it will depend, because you may run into that person who is successfully violent just because inherently of who they are.
They might.
may just be
Sometimes
athletic.
it's just their will to win.
Yeah.
You think that it's like it's not that big a deal, and to them, again, like, you don't know
It's
what's
life
going on
and
in
death.
their
It
life.
could be life and death.
They could have a mental issue. They
Yep.
could be too drunk. They could have something going on in their life beforehand, and you're just the receiver of all that. So just
Yeah.
be mindful and try and run away. That's your best
Be
tactic.
mindful. Learn how to talk respectfully to everyone. Learn how to read that situation. You want to talk about the first line of defense? It's you, always, and your behavior towards other people.
Giving up ground is not any kind of loss of respect.
No. Nobody's that tough.
No, there's no reason to die on that hill of that Buffalo
No.
Wild Wings.
No.
There's another Buffalo Wild
Yeah.
Wings, man. Like, but
Anything else to add?
no.
No. All right. Thank you guys for watching the Steak Knife Show. See you next time.
Bye.